Welcome.
So you cooked up a story and dropped the 6 of us in the meat grinder.
Yeah, that's it. It might be a
How's it
clue
going?
about what we're talking about today.
Yes, finally. Finally, we've made it to Predator. Looking forward to it. One of my favorites. I absolutely love it.
I
And
still
it's been
don't
a
have it on.
while.
Still don't have it
Well,
on Blu-ray yet. I almost bought it a few times, but there's a pack that's got 4 movies for like price of one, so I'm going to buy that one this year and replace my old DVDs.
what was the last Arnie movie we did? Was it Jingle All the Way?
Yeah, Jingle. And now I was watching bits of this today, and like I was making the images, and I thought we better do Commando later in the year because it's like,
Oh yeah, definitely. And of course, we've already done T2, so this is our
yeah.
third Arnold movie now. We're
And
hitting the
we'll
pen.
be coming back to Terminator 1 probably in another month or two. We'll swing back around to that after we get through some Alien Predator stuff. Actually, I'm
Oh
going
yeah.
to go sell the screen just for a second. I'll just show out this monster that's on the desk. Otherwise, I'll forget it's even there. 2 seconds. Check out this fella over here on the desk. Old Arnold. It's a big necker 1/4 one. He's got his nice guns and knife. It's a knife to see you. Stick around. He's out here to hang out with us on the show today.
Looks awesome. Looks awesome. As I was, we were chatting before we started recording. I don't have any of the quarter scale Predator stuff. Pretty much all my Predator stuff
Yep,
is in
2
the
predators up there.
laminate
1
scale.
mask, 1 no mask. Yeah.
You know, I'd love to get my hands on 1 or 2 of them, even though they're really dangerous to own in your house in case
They
they hurt
fall on
you.
you, they'll kill you. They're really heavy.
Oh yeah,
They'll give you a head injury. And I have them very high, but they were over there where they can't get to me. But predators are very agile. They might climb around. I took them out the backyard when I first got them would be at least 2 years ago because I got, the Dutch on the desk, him I ordered online from Victoria. The predators, I actually drove about 30, 40 minutes away down south here. A guy had them on Marketplace on Facebook for sale, and I got them for a really good price. And I think I bought them on different days, but I think I bought both of them from the same guy a couple of weeks apart. And
very
I took them
cool.
out the backyard in the dry weather. And when it was real overgrown, all the weeds and stuff were coming up in the spring, I think it was. And I took a heap of photos with the Dutch figure crouching down in the grass and the predators like up, like searching, like looking for him. And I've still got them. I should look them up later. So they turned out quite good.
Nothing like getting out into the back garden with the toys.
Yeah. And it looked like an absolute. We had the most weeds we'd had in several years, and it looked like a literal jungle. There was so much stuff growing all up the fence and everywhere.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. It's the natural environment for such characters to occupy, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I think I might have told the story before when I was setting up a photo with one of my predators. I had to like skin the body, but it was hanging from a tree, so I like got up on top of my fence and I tied the little body to the tree with some twine, and then I turned around and my neighbor was just looking at me tying this little tiny
What are you
little
doing?
bloody body to a tree. He's like, "Hiya, Mark. Just gonna walk the other way now." But here we are, Predator. And another reason we have to do Commando is because Predator and Commando are set in the same fictional country. Did you know that?
Which no, I did not. Tell me.
Yeah, so it's a made up country called Valverde, just like it's a fake South American country, but it's
Yeah,
just it happens to be it's the name of the country in Commando and it's the name of the country in Predator, which I always thought
did
was
not know that.
interesting. So we will kick things off here. We get our brief opening titles before seeing an alien spacecraft, enter the atmosphere. And it's the type of thing you forget about almost immediately after seeing it. It's one thing even on watching this film, multiple times over. I almost always forget that you actually do see the Predator spaceship at the beginning of the movie. It
Yeah,
just
it's very brief.
mind. So we're kicking off here. We're in some South American country. We see the character of Dutch, who's played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Him and his team have been summoned by General Phillips. They've been called off their R&R break, and they're here to go on a secret mission, or a covert mission across the border into this country, Valverde, to rescue some hostages. And Dutch is reunited with an old friend of his called Dylan, played by the great KARL Weathers. We get
Yeah,
this great moment where the two men have reunited after many years. We get the "what is this fucking Thai business?" and we get the whole embrace, where we see this excellent
son
shot
of a
here,
bitch.
right slap bang in the middle of the two muscular arms
Yeah, it's
clenched
very over
together.
the top moment.
You don't get more manly than this. It's as masculine as you can get before you explode, and you can literally see the veins just popping,
Yeah.
in both of their arms. It's yes, and very, very impressive. And obviously Arnold, he's famous for his big arms, but KARL Weathers is no slouch at the gym. Clearly,
No, he's looking
he
in
is
great
a
shape.
he's a jacked up dude in this movie. So it's explained to us by Dylan and the good general that supposedly a cabinet minister who was traveling in a chopper got shot down over the border in Valverde, and they think that him and his staff are still alive, and they want to send Dutch and his team in to rescue them, because they're pretty much the top team when it comes to these type of rescue missions. They have a bit of a legendary status. And Dutch, right from the off, he's a little bit suspicious of this whole setup. He doesn't understand why they haven't just chosen to use the regular army, and he's a bit confused as to why a cabinet minister would be traveling on the wrong side of the border. There's a lot of things about what they're telling him that doesn't seem to be adding up in his mind, but nevertheless, he's going to follow orders.
Black Ops naughtiness.
Yes, yes, exactly. But he's going to follow his orders, and before we know it, we see Dutch, Dylan, and the rest of the team on board a chopper on their way across the border. And this is where we're introduced to the rest of Dutch's crew. So there's Hawkins, there's Billy, there's Mac, there's Blaine, and there's Poncho. I believe those are all the characters' names in Arnold's crew. And once again, we get some manly men saying and doing manly things. But with the most memorable piece of dialogue, I suppose, has to go to Blaine, who's played by professional wrestling legend Jesse Ventura. And he's sitting there, he's chewing tobacco, and he's offering it around, and everybody else is like, no, like waving it away, like that's disgusting. And he's like, this stuff will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus, just like me. Yeah, great character, Blaine, and an excellent choice of casting. Jesse
Yeah, I always
Ventura
remember
was
that
was
when I was a
perfect.
kid. That line. I mean, he's on Running Man too, isn't he?
That's right, and
Yeah.
he plays the role of Captain Freedom in Running Man, which is
Mm.
also an excellent role. Oh, he was a good actor, Jesse, in the movies he appeared in. And we did mention a couple of months ago, or a few months ago now, when we did our WrestleMania 3 review, that there was talk at the time that there was kind of hope that Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to appear with Jesse Ventura at WrestleMania 3, to tie into kind of the promotion of this movie, and just trying to get Arnold on the show as a big celebrity. But unfortunately, it never happened. But we do have that strong connection between Arnold and Jesse Ventura, going off a couple of movies that they did together.
Yeah, it's a shame he didn't appear at one of those early WrestleManias. Like, I can't remember which it was. I think he's appeared at some other one later on, but just in the audience, not as a real appearance. Just I think he just went to one or whatever. Same like Chuck
Yeah.
Norris on later ones.
Yeah, I think like at 30 something, I can't even remember the number, but it was a fairly modern Mania he ended up finally appearing at. So we
It's not so special then. By then, it's like you've seen celebrities at UFC and people that just go because they're buying tickets and actually want to watch it.
yeah, and it's not like he's still at the peak of his movie career where he's still a household name, but he's just not the force that he once was.
Yeah.
And the 80s Arnold would have suited appearing in wrestling during the 80s, but old man Arnold's appearing at modern day wrestling events, I can take it or leave it. But we see here
If you could have had, if had Stallone and Arnold at a WrestleMania, that would have been something.
Oh yeah,
playing up that rivalry, that would have been fun.
If only we'd had Stallone and Arnold in a buddy cop movie in the early 90s, that probably could have been perfect. But yeah, look, we see here the crew, they rappel down from the chopper and they set about making their way through this jungle environment to rescue the hostages, or to at least track down and try and find out what's happened to them. But on their way to the site that they believe the choppers went down, they also, apart from discovering the crashed chopper, they discover 6 skinned bodies. We see Billy, he stops to cut a vine and take a little drink of water, and as he glances up, he notices that there's blood dripping down from a tree, and as he climbs up to investigate, he's greeted with the gruesome sight of all these skinned bodies hanging upside down. So they find a pair of dog tags kind of lying in a pile of gore and organs, and it's tossed over to Dutch, who identifies the name on it as being Jim Hopper. Jim Hopper, who is a man that he knew. He's a Green Beret out of Fort Bragg. He doesn't understand what him and his team would be doing there. He asks Dylan if he knows anything about it, but Dylan denies it in a very unconvincing and suspicious way. He claims he knows nothing about why Jim Hopper and his team would be here, and it's our it's a really brutal brutal scene in terms of the kind of level of kind of gore you're seeing. Like we got a good look, and we can even see in one of your stills here, like you can see the eyeballs still in the socket of the skinned face. And yeah, there we go. Hold on, I have something to go with this now. I think I have this exact guy. We'll even try putting them upside down.
I think this guy was in Hellraiser as well.
Yeah. It's Uncle Frank from Hellraiser. Yay. Yeah, is this Jim Hopper?
It's nasty.
The official Jim Hopper action figure. So yeah, that's what I was trying to tie to a tree the day that my neighbor saw me. But yeah, very gory, very visceral, and it definitely leads you to believe straight away that there's going to be something special about this particular rescue mission. They may not be dealing with the regular type of enemy that they're used to. Dutch remarks as well that the helicopter
shit.
Oh yeah, oh look, it's they were skinned alive. It's a pretty brutal way to go. And Billy, he's I suppose like he's supposed to be, I think, of like Native American descent. He's like a tracker. He's like the group's kind of tracker who like investigates this stuff, but he's kind of investigating around in the vicinity of where they find the bodies, and he finds shells and ammunition casings, and it leads him to believe, based on the positions of the tracks and other bits and pieces that he finds, that the team seems to have walked into some type of ambush, but the only thing is he can't identify where the ambushers came from. It's like they just went into this particular area and then all of a sudden they were attacked, and he can't find any tracks that would lead him to believe that it was just a bunch of guerrilla rebels that attacked him in the jungle. It's a very bizarre way to find these people, the condition like to find them in, and especially the fact that
Yeah.
they've been dragged up high trees and hung up there. Like, it must have taken a lot of time to do, yet there doesn't seem to be any evidence of like struggle or anything else. So it's a very odd and strange situation that these men have stumbled upon.
I had an experience like this when I was a kid. I walked I walked into a shed at my stepfather's father, so step grandfather's place. I walked into the shed and I didn't know what was in there. I'd walked in there and I looked up and there was a whole lot of skinned bodies. They were rabbits, but it was just like this. There was a whole room full of them, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I wasn't expecting that. Like, I was only a young kid, and I'd never seen like skinned animals up that close before. They were pretty dry, and that they've been drying out. But that's kind of a clue too about the way that they're hanging upside down, and not right way up just to scare you, or hanging in a cage or off a tree or something like someone getting hung in a western. As a warning, it's like they're hanging upside down, like they're just meat.
Yeah. They're being they're being dried out, stored.
Mm.
Yeah, it's great looking effect though. Like, it as gruesome as it is, it does actually look fantastic.
Yeah, those arms look so realistic. Look at that special effects on those arms.
Yeah, those arms don't
Yeah,
look
it's very
terribly
meaty. Like, it's
enhanced.
great practical effects.
Very Hellraiser. It is
Mm.
very Uncle Frank from Hellraiser. So the squad, the crew here, they kind of come to the conclusion, look, whatever happened to these guys anyway, whatever happened to Jim Hopper and his men, it was these rebels who have the hostages that obviously did it. So look, with vengeance in mind, they all get ready to go track down these rebels and find the hostages. And it's during this moment after those bodies are discovered and as they're making their way towards the rebel stronghold that we get our first shot of thermal vision. So we see that they're being watched from up high. And yeah, we see that there seem to be being watched in like an infrared thermal vision spectrum. So that's interesting. It's our first glance at predator vision, for want of a better word. So Dutch and the crew, they make their way through the jungle and they come upon this rebel stronghold. Dutch, he moves in a bit closer. He checks it out. We see him spying on them here with his binoculars, and he gives the order for the team to infiltrate the camp. So it begins with Mac and Blaine sneaking up on like a guard outpost and dispatching of the two guards silently. And while all this is going on, Dutch is sneaking his way down towards the camp, and he comes across this this kind of partially disassembled truck that has the engine running. It's been used to power their water system. Essentially, it's kind of powering like a water tap or a water hose. So he puts a bit of C4 explosives on the back of this truck, and he uses his gargantuan strength to lift the truck up by its kind of back wheels
Yeah, like
and
deadlift style.
push
Yeah.
it. Yeah, he pushes it and it rolls in into the area where all the rebels are enjoying their breakfast for the morning, and it explodes and causes massive chaos. So then Dutch and his team attack, and what we get is probably one of my favorite action movie massacres of all time. Like, to say that these rebels get their asses absolutely kicked. Like, they get absolutely smashed to bits by this team of guys. Like, they
Yeah,
just
really these guys.
absolutely destroy them. And like, it would be hard to go through it blow by blow. But look, folks, if you haven't, for whatever reason, if you haven't seen this movie, even if you don't watch much more of this movie, I would watch this attack on the rebel stronghold because it's just unbelievable. And the weaponry in this movie is just top notch. Like we saw Blaine there with his minigun. We see Arnold here. He's got the what is it, like an M4 with an underslung grenade launcher. It's just
Yeah,
some fantastic weaponry for all you gun people. I'm sure Mr. Salzberg, if he's watching, could definitely give us the correct names for the models of guns here. But yeah, great weaponry. They absolutely massacre the rebels. We also get the great moment where, as Dutch is making his way through the facility, one of the rebels tries to sneak up behind him, but Dutch just quickly turns around and skewers him with his knife, and he gives us that line, "Stick around," which is a
classic.
fantastic pun from Arnold. So they completely
That one.
destroy. Yes, there we go, love it. Um, they completely destroy, they massacre all these rebels, and when it's all said and done, it's established that the hostages have been killed. The rebels have killed the hostages. However, it's also made clear that these hostages were not like the cabinet minister or any of the people that Dutch and his crew were led to
No,
believe. It seems more like they were like, kind of top CIA operatives, and they also discover large quantities of weapons and ammunition that were seemed to be destined to be moving across the border, and some like advanced weaponry and stuff that's kind of painting the picture that these guys are, a lot more than a bunch of half-assed mountain boys, as Dutch would
yeah.
put it.
Apparently, in real life, in the this regional part of the world, they had like the world record for the most amount of like basically special ops and crazy illegal stuff going on behind the scenes. At the most amount of special men on special missions, basically at the same time, including both legal and illegal operations.
Oh yeah, and speaking of illegal operations and suspicious activity, Dutch confronts Dylan. He realizes now that everything was just a lie, that there was no cabinet minister, that they were pretty much sent in there just to wipe out the rebels. He knew that his crew would be good enough to do it. It didn't matter if there was hostages to be rescued. He just wanted them to be sent in really as a hit squad, essentially, to take out this base. So Dutch is pretty annoyed with this whole situation. He's also managed to capture a rebel girl who he knocked out when she tried to set upon him earlier. So now we have a prisoner that's going to be taken with them as they make their way back to the extraction site, to be extracted out of where they are. So they get some intel over the radio that there's a large rebel force heading towards their location, so they won't be able to get out the same way they went in. They're going to have to go the opposite direction, into this valley where they'll eventually hopefully get to a chopper extraction point and get out of there. So they bring the girl rebel along who they've captured, and they begin making their way through the jungle. And as we're making our way through the jungle, we notice that Billy, he's getting a little bit spooked. He's watching the trees a lot, and he keeps on gripping this kind of little necklace that he has around his neck. And Dutch, he's asking him what's wrong, and Billy's like, he can kind of like sense something, and there's something in the trees watching them. And we see, as this discussion is taking place, once again we see the predator thermal vision, so we can see that the team are being watched here and they're being listened to. We also see in the predator's vision what appears to be like it recording what the individuals are saying to each other and then playing it back over again. And and so we get this bit of back and forth between Dutch and Billy before they decide to start moving on again. But as this has been happening, the rebel girl, whose name is Anna, essentially, while everybody's distracted looking at Billy, she grabs a stick off the ground and she uses it to hit Poncho over the head so she can make a break for it. So she starts running away through the jungle, and Dutch orders Hawkins, who's the team member wearing the glasses, and also in real life Shane Black, the man who co-wrote this movie, and many
Yeah,
others.
at least the weapon on it.
So he sets off after Anna, chasing her through the jungle. He eventually catches up with her. He's pleading with her to stop, and just as he's caught her, he kind of has a hold of her, and she all of a sudden looks over his shoulder and sees that this kind of strange, shimmering, invisible force is moving towards him. And just as he turns around to see what's happening, he gets skewered and dragged off into the jungle. So this is our first kind of proper introduction to the predator in action.
Invisible Man.
Hawkins with ease. So the rest of the team, they catch up to eventually to where Anna and Hawkins were. They find Anna. She's covered in blood. She's babbling about the jungle coming alive and killing Hawkins. So they begin to look for his body, but all they can find is his bloodied backpack and his weapon, which has been left behind. And unbeknownst to them, as they are searching for him, while that's all going on the ground, the camera pans up and we see that Hawkins has been strung up and tied upside down to a tree, just like the bodies we came across earlier. So we're
And very
established
quickly,
very quickly.
record time.
He's not been skint yet, though, you know. So the predator
Mm.
obviously only had
But
time
just to
just
get
to
him up
string
there
him up.
that quickly, like in the speed that he's been killed, and then up there is just like, what the hell?
So even though they can't find his body, they do know enough to know that look, he's dead because there was like tons of blood everywhere. There's like a little pile of what could only be described as like organs or something on the ground
Yeah.
beside where they find his weapon. So it's pretty clear to them he's probably dead. But look, they still want to try and find him, to find his body. So they go out, they split off, they go out searching in the jungle, and Jesse Ventura's character Blaine, he's armed with his minigun. We seen him in action earlier, like wiping out rebels with it. A very powerful weapon would be an understatement. But he thinks that he's being approached by something. He arms his weapon and stands firm, but it turns out just to be like a little I don't even know what you call it, like a chipmunk or porcupine or some little
It looks
jungle
like a
creature.
halfway between a gopher and a porcupine or a groundhog with quills or something.
So he kind of just scoffs and kind of chuckles to himself that he thought it was an enemy. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we see this big laser bolt come from behind him and pretty much blow his entire chest open, like causes like a massive wound, and blood's just like spraying out. His rib cage
Oh.
is exploded open. He drops to the ground. He's dead. Just as this happens, Mac, who's played by Bill Duke, appears on the scene, sees his friend who's just been killed lying on the ground, looks up and sees the same weird, invisible, shimmering kind of apparition that we saw earlier, except this time its eyes flash yellow just before it makes a break for it. So, you know, Mac, in a kind of fit of rage and despair, he picks up Blaine's minigun and he just starts spraying the jungle right in front of
Yeah,
him. And as
it's
he's
awesome.
doing this, Dutch, Billy, Dylan, Poncho, they all show up alongside him and they all start firing as well. So we get this excellent moment where all the good guys, they're just facing forward and just completely leveling an area of jungle, like just destroying, like, if you're a nature loving tree hugger, you would probably definitely not like this scene one bit. Because now I'd like to think that they faked it. I hope they
Went
did.
back
I
and planted trees.
Yeah, but because this is eco destruction right here. Like the Planeteers would not be happy with what's going on here at all.
It's a real forest. This stuff would grow back quick, though, like a tropical, humid type of forest.
But, they completely level this area jungle, and it doesn't stop. The shooting does not stop until they've literally like spent through all their ammo. And in the aftermath, they're looking around at all the chaos and carnage, and they realize that they've actually hit nothing. There's no bodies. They haven't hit a single thing. So Anna, the rebel girl, does notice something that nobody else notices, and that's the fact that there seems to be like this luminous green blood on some of the leaves, and she kind of covertly picks it up and puts it in her pocket. So that's something we'll be kind of looking at later on. So
Some of that green there.
yeah, some of that green goo, some of that glow stick goo there pouring out of his
From the
leg.
nightclub or Ghostbusters, maybe.
And I suppose that's kind of a nice little segue into the next moment where we see Anna. She's sitting alone. She's looking at this leaf covered in the luminous blood, and we do then see for the first time we see the predator actually decloaking, and we get our first kind of look at him. We see he's been wounded on the leg, so at least some of the bullets did hit him. He did get clipped, and he's starting to perform some minor surgery on his kind of knee, and it obviously hurts him a little bit because we hear him kind of shrieking as he's like injecting himself with something to to try and treat the wound. So we know now we are definitely dealing with something out of this world, and it's not just a man that's doing all this killing here. So we cut back to the rest of the guys in the jungle, and they're kind of mulling over what had happened. Two of their team members, Blaine and Hawkins, are now dead. They can't understand how this has happened. They can't understand how they haven't managed to hit anything when they did the big shootout earlier. Dutch is questioning Mac. He's trying to get him to describe what he saw, but all Mac keeps on repeating is that the eyes just disappeared. Then finally he confronts Anna, who he kind of susses that she's able to speak English, even though she's been speaking Spanish the whole time. He kind of just speaks English directly to her, and she starts speaking English back. So he says, he gets her to repeat again what it is she thought that she saw, and she talks about, she kind of describes what happened when Hawkins died, but then she also mentions to him that they had actually wounded the creature earlier when they did the big shooting gallery because its blood was on the trees. So then we get the great line from Arnold, well, if it bleeds, we can kill it. So they decide to set up camp for the night, and Blaine, he's kind of wrapped up in his kind of fatigues. They do still have his body because he died beside him, and Mac is given first watch on guard duty for the night. They're also told to set up loads of tripwires and flares and things like that, just so nobody can sneak attack them during the night while they're resting. But during the night, we see as Mac is kind of sitting watching the moon, the security, the tripwires and everything begins to be set off, and this big creature runs through the camp, and Mac attacks it and kills it with his knife. But when the rest of the team wake up and shine a flashlight on it, it turns out he's actually killed a wild boar that had just kind of crashed through the barricades and set off the tripwires. But as a result of this, everybody's awake and they go to where Blaine's body is, and the body is gone. So even though it was the boar that set off all the kind of flares and tripwires and everything else, the predator had actually earlier managed to sneak into the camp, take the body, and get out without anybody noticing. So Dutch kind of theorizes that the creature or whatever it is that's hunting them seems to be able to see all their like mechanical defenses. Like he saw the tripwires, he saw the claymores. For whatever reason, he seems to be able to detect measures like that. So Dutch comes to the conclusion that they're going to lay a few traps, but the type of traps they're going to lay are old style, leverage traps and kind of
Rambo
deadfalls,
traps.
Rambo style traps, you know, pits in the ground with spikes, that type of stuff. And it's all going to be done using, you know, the actual environment. They're going to use vines instead of ropes and things like that, because Arnold, or Dutch, he doesn't fully still understand what's going on, but he seems to know enough that whatever it is that's kind of tracking and killing them, it seems to be able to see them and they can't see it. So maybe they can use the jungle to their advantage with some of these traps to try and get it. So they set up all these traps. We got a great montage of just strong men doing strong man things, you know, like pulling down trees and doing all this type of stuff. And you know, they all get set up. They're all kind of hiding and watching in the area where they've laid the traps. And you know, Dutch, they're just sitting there, nothing's happening, and Dylan's kind of making fun of him. He's like, "This is a stupid idea," and you know, what are you going to try next? Cheese. And so Dutch actually decides he'll actually take his advice, and he decides to leave the area that they're hiding in and slowly walk towards where the trap is. And as he's doing that, once again, the invisible object appears, but this time it steps right on the trap they've set up, and it's a net that kind of propels it right up into the air. So they've caught something, but before they can get a look at what it is they've caught, there's a big explosion, there's a laser fire, the predator breaks out of the net he's been caught in. He blows a big chunk out of one of the trees that sets off the deadfall trap, which hits poor Poncho right square in the chest. Like, he gets a log of a tree right to the chest, which I imagine is incredibly painful.
Yeah.
So just chaos, just absolute chaos. What did you think of this whole setup and everything when they were kind of preparing their traps and preparing to try and capture the predator?
Oh, I love it because they're manly men, and they're used to kicking ass and taking names, but all the usual tactics aren't working. So, like you said, they go real low tech and try and set these old technology free traps and that, but it's still kind of not really working because then the predator can both hunt and track them the way they can, but it's also got superior technology and superior firepower, and it doesn't seem to care about cheating. It's just like, I'm going to blast you with lasers.
Yeah, it's so. In some ways it doesn't work. In other ways, I suppose it kind of half worked. They almost trapped it, but like you said, it's able to just blast its way out of the net straight away. So they had no chance of actually being able to
You've got to
hold it.
disable that laser if you want to keep him in the net. But then he's still got a big
So
claw, so
yeah, and he's like super strong as well. He
yeah,
probably just like ripped through the
yeah,
trap like it's
probably
nothing.
could.
But so this whole incident causes absolute chaos. Mac goes off through the jungle chasing after the predator. Dylan goes after him, to which Dutch remarks that it's not his style, but throws him an extra like MP5 machine gun or whatever, just submachine gun, just to take with him. So Dylan and Mac set off. Dutch and Billy help Poncho to his feet, and along with Anna, they start making their way towards the location of the chopper. So we cut back to Dylan. He's looking for Mac. He can't find them anywhere, and just as he's kind of resting against a branch of a tree, he hears, "Over here, turn around," which is it sounds like Mac's voice, and he starts kind of crawling through the foliage and trying to investigate where the voice is coming from. Then all of a sudden, Mac's hand just comes out and kind of pulls him in under some scrub, and he's like over there, and he's pointing up into the trees. He's like, "Do you see it?" And Dylan looks up, and he can actually see the shimmering camouflage of the predator moving in the tree up ahead. And he's like, "Yeah, I do see it." So they decide between them that they're going to try and flush the creature out. So Dylan's going to kind of flank it. He's going to come up on it, try and draw its fire, and while its kind of back is turned and it's distracted by all this, just get Mac to unload with his machine gun, and hopefully that will be enough to kill it. So they begin the process of this plan, and Mac, he's trying to be really stealthy. He's like crawling through the leaves and like crawling under the bushes, and he thinks he's being like super sneaky. And next thing, just as he grabs a branch, he looks at his arm and realizes that there's like 3 laser dots on his arm, and he moves his head up to kind of look at the dots. And next thing we see in, like, as we see in this great screenshot, it's actually a targeting mechanism right on his forehead, and then boom, his head just explodes. And
Jelly.
yeah, we see the invisible form of the Predator walking over his dead body. So we cut back to Dylan. He's coming up on the location for where he was supposed to flush out the Predator, who's already long gone by this stage. But he does hear once again that "over here, turn around" voice. Except this time he looks and he sees Mac's dead body. So we realize that's actually the Predator that's been playing the sound of Mac's voice kind of back at him. So the Predator starts moving towards Dylan rapidly, but Dylan he's kind of locked onto him now, and even though the Predator's invisible, he can still make out his location. So he starts opening fire with one of his submachine guns, but the Predator targets his arm and literally blows his arm off. It just drops on the ground with the gun still firing, which is a really cool effect. So then Dylan, as a one-armed man, he tries to take his other submachine gun from the other side, and he's trying to bring it around. And just as he has it aimed, the Predator comes right up on him and skewers him. And that's the end of poor Dylan. We hear the gunshots going off and we hear a scream, but we don't fully know what exactly happened to him, which happens to a few characters in this movie. We know they get a grisly death, but you don't always see on screen what happens. And we're about to get another example of that now, because the rest of the team, as they're making their way across this large kind of tree bridge, they hear the screams of Dylan, and this prompts Billy to stop in his tracks, and he throws down his backpack. He takes off his gear. He throws his gun down, and he takes out his machete. Which, by the way, I own this exact machete. I have a prop replica of it, and he gets it out and he cuts a big slice across his chest. And Dutch and the rest are trying to like get him to come on, but no, like he's decided he's gonna stay here and he's gonna make his stand. He's gonna die like a warrior. And we never actually see what happens to Billy, but we do
No.
hear his gnarly scream. And even though we don't see exactly what happens to him, we will see later on, just for a split second, the Predator like disemboweling him and like taking out his spinal cord and skull, and it looks like he got a pretty
Was
bad
fun.
doing. So yeah, whatever happened was bad. So now we're down to only Dutch, Anna, and Poncho. And Poncho's been badly injured by the log hitting him earlier on. So the three of them, they're struggling. They're trying to make it to the drop zone, the extraction zone. And once again, they're set upon by the Predator. He kills Poncho pretty quickly. Literally just does the laser blast to the side of his head, like blows a chunk of his brain out. Arnold opens fire, but he hits nothing. The Predator shoots his gun and literally blows his gun in half. So now he's been disarmed by his firearm, and he screams at Anna to make a break for it. He's like, "Run, get to the chopper!" So she makes a run for it. She runs down the jungle while Dutch, he goes to escape himself, but he's pretty badly messed up. His arm's hurt. He trips, he falls, he rolls, and he slides off a cliff edge basically, and falls into a river down below. It's a pretty cool moment actually, where we actually see a nice still of him there, like doing his free fall. It's pretty crazy, and he hits the water pretty hard, but he manages to survive, and he manages to make it to land. Now, as he's crawling out of the water though onto the land, he's crawling through wet mud, which, you know, sticks all over his body and completely covers him from head to toe in this cold, wet mud. And just as he's gotten himself onto land, we see that the predator drops down into the water behind him and begins to emerge from the river.
Yeah, I love that. I was looking at the still bits of this early, and I was trying to see the bit where he goes in, and it's just invisible. They just have kind of movement in the water and that, so you never can quite tell exactly where he is. So it works really well.
So the predator, it walks out of the water, and obviously as a result of hitting such deep water, it's beginning to short circuit his cloaking device. So as he's walking out of the water, we see all these kind of electrical effects and sparks and stuff, and his cloaking device disengages, so we get to actually see him in his kind of full predator appearance. So we see quite a large creature that walks like a human but has a very strange looking mask and dreadlocks. It's a pretty cool looking creature.
Speaking of which, I guess I found some things earlier while I was tinkering away. I'm just going to scroll down here a ways. I found a couple of old photos. One here.
Ah.
So that was our overgrown
being
backyard
hunted.
a few years back. It's getting
I love it.
to
I love
jungle proportions. It's the same one again, it's a different angle, but closer up. We're kind of looking down from his waist, looking upwards. I did have the gun in his hand, but it's in his other hand there. That's why his hand's kind of going like that. And check out this one here. It's like one standing on the brick wall in the background. It looks small, but those are the 18-inch ones because I'm quite far back from it. And closer up of there, the same ones. You can, and speaking of its weird looking face, there we go. Get a good look at his face.
Yeah. Great looking creature design.
Mm.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the Predator 2, the City
Indeed
Hunter
it is.
version. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see he's got
his coloring.
He's got like the tiger stripe, like a tiger shark, and then this one like brown looking, and then the other guy in the foreground, he's got pale. He looks more like a fish or the bloody creature from Black Lagoon or something. He's got real pasty fish complexion on him. Yeah, awesome. There he is. He's very pale, so that's like the Predator one. The mask doesn't come off that one, whereas the other one has the mask off. So it's nice to have one with, one without, to get both looks. And but it didn't look so awesome in the early versions, as we know. It looked a bit different.
It sure did. Yeah,
a bit like Venom.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that this was almost the best Jean-Claude Van Damme movie that never was.
He was almost he was inspiration of Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat, and he was almost a Predator.
Yeah, he was almost a Predator, and you know, look, I've nothing against Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's a cool dude or whatever, but thank God they made the change.
Yep, I mean, this would have been another B movie sort of thing in terms of how cheesy the monster looked if it wasn't for the Stan Winston Studios improving upon, you know, what was there and making the more full version with the head and everything.
Even taking out the costume design for a second, just the height difference alone, because like when we saw the Predator come out of the water earlier, we see straight away it's like, you know, maybe 7-8 foot tall, whereas poor Jean-Claude, you know, he was more, let's just say, a little bit shorter than that, so it definitely wouldn't have been as imposing or intimidating.
But this one looks like, I know, I did have a print article years ago that showed these when these images first came out, and it looks almost like more lean, like the alien, and then the head looks like a Venom symbiote on top of it. So, but it looks super cheesy, like a 50s movie monster. You know?
Back to our cool-looking Predator, though, that they actually did go with. So, yeah, the Predator, it emerges from the water, and it's looking for Dutch, but it can't see Dutch. He's undetectable to its heat
Dutch,
vision. He certainly can't. Not yet, though. Eventually, he'll be able to learn that. But so Dutch establishes that the reason it can't see him is because the wet mud must be blocking out his heat signature. So this is now like a major advantage in the sense that, you know, we can now we can't see it, or it couldn't see, you know, it can't see me and I can't see it, so we're kind of on an even playing field now, I suppose, in a lot of ways. So Dutch, he begins to prepare and make a stand. So he's lost his gun, he's lost his sidearm. He still has a couple of knives. He also still has a couple of grenades from his grenade launcher as well. So he does have some tools he can use. So he begins fashioning himself up some Rambo style you know, weapons. He makes himself a nice kind of bow and arrow, and he, you know, attaches his kind of grenades to the end of the arrows, so he has explosive arrows. He starts setting up traps, makes another dead fall, another kind of spiky trap that's set to like fall on your head if you trip a wire, and makes all sorts of preparations. And then as nightfall comes, he lights up a fire, and he kind of does this big kind of primordial scream into the night. And the predator, who's at a different location, hears this scream and kind of knows, okay, this is it. It's on now. You know, he's like almost like challenging the predator to come
Here
get
I
him.
am.
So predator makes his way to the location where Dutch is, which is, you know, he's got the fire burning, and the predator, he goes down to investigate. And as he walks across the tree branch where the fire is burning, the fire actually illuminates him in such a way that the Dutch is actually able to see him even with his cloaking device on, because of how the flames kind of react off it. So he's able to get a good shot on him with his explosive arrow, which kind of topples the predator and knocks him off balance, you know, before he can get off any shots with his laser. Now, he does eventually start firing his laser, but because he can't see Dutch, he starts kind of shooting it in random directions, which one of them eventually does land near Dutch and cause an explosion and cause you know, cause him to retreat. I know I keep referring to it as a laser. It's actually, if memory serves me correctly from playing the Predator games, it's called a plasma caster. That's the name of the weapon
That would make sense.
that the Predator uses. So things reset again. Dutch is back hiding. He's just trying to avoid being detected. But he's also having trouble spotting where the Predator is. So he takes a rock and he throws it, and the predator, you know, the predator shoots at the area where the rock lands. So then Dutch is able to guess the location of where he is. So he throws another explosive at him. At this time, it's like an explosive spear, and it wounds him. So he's getting his licks in on the predator here, and it feels like it's starting to become a bit more of an even playing field. However, just as Dutch is kind of coming round the bend and looking to get out of dodge, the predator sees him running, and he caps off a shot with the plasma caster, which breaks the branch that Dutch is hanging off, and it causes Dutch to fall into the water, which unfortunately for Dutch, as he's swimming out of the water, we can
No,
see
he's
that
got
all the
that mud.
mud is starting to wash off his skin. So as soon as he emerges from the water, he looks around just to make sure that the coast is clear. And just as he's raising his head, we see the two spikes just come down and like pin his head right to the bark of the tree. It's a really great moment. And here we see the predator. He's standing over him. He's absolutely massive. He lifts Dutch up by the neck and just puts him up against a rock, and he starts really, really examining him and looking at his skull through the infrared and looking at the size of his head, and probably thinking to himself, this guy is going to make an awesome, awesome trophy, you know, once I skin him and take his skull. So I guess the predator, he's built up a bit of respect for Dutch at this stage, so he drops him and he begins to back off, and he stands across from Dutch, and he begins to disarm himself. He takes off the plasma caster and throws it down, and he then removes his face mask, and
which
we
also
get
has
this.
infrared.
Yeah, we get this brilliant reveal of what the creature actually looks like without the mask on. And man, I have to say, I just fucking love the design of this creature. Like, the mouth, the mandibles, it just looks so cool. It looks really, really cool. And the animatronics they use here for the mask and just to show his mouth moving, and it's really, really impressive. I just I don't know. What do you think of this whole creature design? I absolutely love it.
It's my favorite movie monster ever. But then, I'm 80s kid, so I like all the Universal Studios monsters and Godzilla and all those kind of things. But just the practical effects leap from the 70s into the 80s, especially post Vietnam War, with your Tom Savini's and your Stan Winston Studios guys just making much more realistic looking stuff with all the kind of moisture and texture to it. Looks like real skin, looks like kind of like reptilian sort of skin. And then the robotics and the puppetry of moving things around, as well as integrating that with like your I don't know, basically mime or silent movie body postures and movements, like that work on screen. It's just amazing. Like it just leaps ahead of stuff you were seeing in the 60s and 70s. It's just amazing. And the latex too, all the latex that came out in the early 80s, all your rubber hybrids and vinyls and stuff that make stuff like this possible, to really sculpt it like a statue or like a thing into something that's like super detailed from all your casts and busts and sketches, and really bring that imaginary thing to life. It's still my favorite movie monster.
And supposedly, apart from Stan Winston's design, it was actually James Cameron that came up with the idea of giving the Predator the mandible face. He had a discussion with
Yeah,
Winston on
I
the
remember
plane,
reading that years ago.
so that's pretty cool. But so look, the fight is on now. It's man versus beast, and they're both unarmed, but the Predator clearly has a massive advantage, and he absolutely beats the piss out of Dutch. I mean, he knocks him around. He's knocking lumps out of him. Like at one point, he punched him across the jaw, and you just see this massive amount of blood just kind of pouring out of Dutch's mouth, and he's just taken a really bad beating, and he's beaten to the point where he's not really even able to walk anymore. He's kind of crawling while the Predator slowly walks after him, kind of kicking him and punching him. It's a real beatdown, but he manages to lure the Predator into one of the areas where he'd set up a trap earlier, and he's really trying to goad the Predator to come towards him because he wants these kind of spikes to fall down on top of him. And he's like, "I'm here, kill me, I'm here," and trying to get the Predator to come closer. But the Predator realizes that he's been lured into a trap. He spots a couple of the spikes above his head, so he decides to get up and come around the other side of where Dutch is lying. But just as he hops down and we think he's about to kill Dutch, Dutch manages to kick like the branch that's been like holding the trap in place, and it manages to drop a big deadfall log right down on top of the Predator's head, kind of crushing him. So Dutch is like, "Nice one, I got him." But just as he's about to breathe a sigh of relief, we see that the log begins to move, and the Predator is still alive. He pushes it off him, and Dutch runs over with a big boulder ready to smash his head in, but he stops short when he kind of sees the condition that the Predator is in. The Predator's lying there. He's spitting up all his luminous blood. He's coughing, and we get that great line from Dutch is like, "What the hell are you?" And then the Predator just kind of mimics back, and I'm like, "What the hell are you?" With his
Yeah,
weird,
and like
his
and
weird.
earlier, I love the use of his technology, where he's basically recording little, or he's like an annoying person with a dictaphone running around recording voiceovers and playing them back at you. But it's a very good tactic to trick them, and not just psych out the enemy, but to trick them into thinking, "Oh, it's my friend or someone yelling out for help," and instead it's you've been led into a trap.
Yeah, and it's kind of It's like the hunter doing. Yeah. So he's about to get his head bashed in, but Arnie he drops the boulder. He doesn't go through this, and yeah, we get that exchange of the "What the hell are yous?" And next thing, Predator he activates his wrist gauntlet, and it starts making a peculiar sound. It sounds suspiciously like a countdown, even though we don't understand what it's actually saying. And the Predator actually starts laughing, which is a great moment because he's mimicking the laughter of Billy from earlier on in the film when he was told the joke. So it's great that he's having a one last laugh right before he does what he's about to do. So Dutch knows that something bad's about to go down, so he starts running, and just as he's made it a bit of a distance, we see all these kind of electrical lightning effects in the background, and next thing there's a big explosion, and we cut to the chopper where General Phillips and Anna and the pilot are there, and they come across what could only be described as like almost like a mini nuclear mushroom cloud right in the middle of the jungle, and kind of standing near the crater of this explosion. We just see Dutch kind of staring, and he's all messed up. He's covered in mud and blood, but he's alive. So they pick him up, and the last shot we see is of him just kind of staring out the window blankly, no doubt kind of mulling over everything that's happened to him in the last 48 hours or so. And that's another thing. Like, I know we've kind of we've flown through kind of what happens in the movie, but the pace of the movie actually
Yeah,
moves incredibly fast, and
yeah, it does.
the whole story really only takes place over, like, 2 days really as well. Like, they
Mm.
get dropped into the jungle to do their thing. There's a night bit of nighttime, and then it moves really quickly as a story. The pace of it.
Yeah, I like that too. It kind of feels like it's in real time, you know.
We do get a nice moment at the end for the end credits where we get to see the entire cast smiling and happy and alive, holding their weapons,
Reading
and
Sergeant Rock.
yeah, I always really just like the end credits for this movie. It's just funny seeing everybody kind of do a little pose and then a freeze frame before their name comes up. It's pretty cool. Awesome soundtrack to this movie as well. The
Yeah, I
musical
left it
score is
playing
just
earlier
brilliant.
when I was making these stills. I was had it playing as I was doing grabbing images, but then I was going in and out, and the movie finished, and it was just my video players. I was on a loop, so it just goes back to the start and starts playing it again. So I was hearing the soundtrack and the music all over again as I was doing stuff.
And were you aware that the helicopter pilot is actually the Predator? He's Kevin Peter Hall, the man who plays the Predator.
I don't remember, but I had probably about 12 years ago read a massive long article series in Empire magazine that had all that kind of cool stuff in there. And it's been that long, I just don't remember because they had all the stuff about JCVD and the suit and all that, and all the cool behind all the little factoids and fun things.
It's such a great movie, though, and it took a lot. It took a lot for me not to just go by this line by line, because I could go by, and there's so much memorable dialogue in it, and great characters. But I think it's fair to assume that most of the people watching or listening to us today, they have seen the movie. But if you haven't seen the movie, really, I have not done it justice in my description of it today. But there's so much in it when it comes to visual effects, to action,
Well, it's like
dialogue,
a
story.
standard action movie for a portion, and then it kind of changes things up on you. It merges, and you've got science fiction and horror elements in there, but it merges them all in a way that really like surprises you, and you don't know what's going to happen next, and keeps you guessing.
And it's another one of those things that could have just turned out as a total dud B
Yeah,
movie,
a
waste
lot
of
of lot
time
of
and money.
pre-production hassles making this, and concepts and stuff changed, and
And it's directed by John McTiernan, who directed Die Hard, another one of
yeah,
our favorites. And he does great action movies. He knows what he's doing, and this is no exception. It's such a good movie, and it blew my mind as a kid. It just
yeah.
absolutely
I
blew my
first saw it as a
mind.
kid on TV, and like it would, even with the bits they censored in the network TV version, it was still fairly graphic.
Yeah, funnily enough, the first DVD that they released to the Predator over here for some reason was the TV version. So lots of stuff censored out. They didn't even have the stick around bit. It was cut completely from the DVD. So
bloody Thatcher's at it again.
yeah. Thankfully, though, that was rectified a few years later. They just released a proper theatrical cut.
And in the real R-rated cut, do you get to see Mikey's nunchucks in the Predator movie as well, or are they still cut out?
Yeah, they changed them to a rope and a grappling hook.
Yeah. That's how he gets up the trees.
Yeah. Yeah, great movie. I know we'll be touching on its sequel soon as well, which I'm looking forward to. I actually watched both of them back to back this week.
That's what I tend to do. I tend to sit down and watch them back to back.
My wife Christina is also a big fan of this movie, so we watched it the other night. We always have a
must
great
have read.
time.
We're gonna get through some films, but in a few more weeks we're gonna talk about some of the action figures and toys, and also the Dark Horse comics, and we'll probably touch on video games. But remember that early Dark Horse comic where basically it's the early kind of version of Predator 2.
Yes.
Where it was possibly going to be Arnold, and they just make it like his brother or something in the city.
Yes.
And it's just like he's like a twin.
It's a pretty cool story. It's
fun though. It's fun. Yeah. It's kind of like what if you had been in that movie.
Yeah, great story.
But I love that it just, instead of like changing the story, that it's like, well, Arnold, it can't officially be Arnold in this comic, so it's just it's like his twin brother in the city.
Yeah.
It's the other twin you didn't know that wasn't Danny DeVito.
Yeah. One guy went off to become like a special forces black ops guy.
Yeah.
The other guy just became a cop.
Yeah. It was also tough as nails and also fights predators.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Both Concrete Jungle and the sequel are really good comics. We will get there.
Yeah, we're going to do some dedicated episodes on some of the like comics and video games and toys and that, because there's so much of that stuff they can easily do an episode or two on. You know, might do episode 2 just on toys and a couple on comics, and yeah. Oh no,
do an episode dedicated to Jim Hopper. Jim Hopper. I knew this man, Jim Hopper.
I think he's salsa flavored.
Pepperami.
Beef jerky Hopper.
Yeah, but we love our aliens, we love our Predator, we love mixing the two of them together sometimes as well. So
yeah, on the action figure shelf I do, but in the movies not so much.
Yeah, we're still waiting for that good Aliens versus Predator movie.
It might happen one day. They might actually make a decent one, but I'm not getting me knickers in a twist or holding out too much hope for it.
No, and look, the way I look at that stuff is, yeah, the movies were a disappointment, but you still have the games, you still have the comics.
Yeah, there's plenty of comics and games that do it well.
If you want to get your fix of that, there are ways to do it.
Plenty of toys from multiple different companies so you can buy and chuck on your shelf.
Yeah, and if you don't have space for the big NACA ones, you can get the little higher ones, which are pretty cool as well.
Well, we're gonna. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, is it higher or is it hiya?
Hiya! I've never seen any of those in person. That what like, are they 4 or 5 inch? Or
yeah, they're like they're little 1/18. They're little 1/18.
Right. So they're on G.I. Joe kind of scale. Right. I've never seen any in person. So.
Wilhelm of Wilhelm Toy and Hobby has a few of them. He could probably show you.
The 118 man. He's back for revenge.
Oh yeah. Good show, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you, like I said, you enjoy this movie. But if you haven't watched it, like I said, I didn't do it justice. So please do take the time to watch it if you're on the fence about seeing it.
I'm gonna watch Predator 5 tonight because I just realized I haven't actually watched it ever, and I know it's not supposed to be great, but I haven't actually ever watched it. I've watched every other one 2 or 3 times, so I'm gonna go and watch that.
That's the one that's called Prey.
Yeah.
It's decent. It is decent. I will say that.
I heard it was supposed to be okay, but not great. I don't have much expectations from modern movies about anything these days. So.
Well, I won't go on too much of a rant, but if you've watched that Predator from 2018,
Yeah.
that's a shit film. Like, it's an
I've watched that
awful.
I've watched all of them 2 or 3 times because I just like it's like watching even Friday the 13th. So if I'm in a mood, I'll just watch like all of them over a week, even the good ones, bad, whatever.
If you can tolerate watching the Predator from 2018 multiple times, you'll probably think Prey is pretty good.
Got Tom Jane there. It's not. The story goes nowhere, and it makes no fucking sense. So there's a stupid Iron Man Predator suit at the end, but it's got Tom Jane.
I still haven't watched it since the cinema. Maybe if I gave it another watch, I'd mellow towards it a bit.
I did enjoy I did enjoy just the visual effects of seeing the Predators run around in the movie on the big cinema screen, because it's the only one I've ever seen actually, no, I saw 2 at the cinema. I saw that Rodriguez one at the cinema as well, actually.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Rodriguez one for the most part, I have to say. We'll have to tackle it someday.
Yeah. We're going to finish up, and to take us out, I'm going to play the trailer for the movie.
Cool.
Catch you next time.
We are a rescue team, not assassins. Now, what do we gotta do?
In a part of the world where there are no rules,
We pick up their trail at the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages before anybody knows we were there. What do you mean we?
deep in the jungle, where nothing that lives is safe,
You lose it here, you're in a world of hurt. Showtime, kid. Knock, knock.
an elite rescue squad
You're bleeding, man. I ain't got time to bleed.
is being led by the ultimate warrior.
We need the best. That's why you're here.
But now,
What's got Billy so spooked?
there's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man. They're up against the ultimate enemy.
Holy Mother of God.
Nothing like it has ever been on Earth before.
She says the jungle just came alive and took him.
We cannot see it,
No blood, no bodies. We hit nothing.
but it sees the heat of our bodies and the heat of our fear.
Whatever it is out there, it killed Hopper. And now it wants us.
It kills for pleasure.
He was skinned alive!
It hunts for sport.
He's killing us one at a time.
We're all gonna die.
But this time, it's picked the wrong man to hunt.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
20th Century Fox presents Arnold Schwarzenegger. Predator. The hunt begins Friday, June 12th at theaters everywhere.